Hello guys, today we will go in deep more and more with function and how to create a function in MATLAB and how does a function work. Now guys, as you see in the screen in the command window, when we write sine of x, sine is just a name. As I mentioned before, and I will keep mentioning it, sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, all of these are just names. You can change the name of sine as Hermes. So I can call this function Hermes. But what will this function do? So what will the function Hermes do? I should define it. So the first step to define any function in MATLAB is that you should know the name of your function and the output of it. The input is actually the operation that you will do. So you should know how many outputs you have, how many inputs do you have, the name of your function, and the operation your function will do. So that's all. I can create a function called Hermes of x, and this function will give me the answer, or the sine of any angle in degrees. I enter. So now let's create a new script. Now, you know sine of x has the power series, or the Maclurian power series of this. So as you see, sine of x equals this operation. And the explanation of this operation is this. So when you see sine is just a name, and the operation of this sine is here, and the output is there. So the output is defined, the name of the operation is defined, the operation itself is defined, and the input is defined. So I should write my operation. Now define your operation, but before starting to define your operation, you should define the name, the output, and the input of your function. So just tell MATLAB you want to create a function. Just write function. You're not dealing with a human being, you're dealing with a computer. So just tell him, I am trying to create a function. So function, my input will be y, and the name of my function will be Hermes. I want to call it Hermes. It's freedom. I want to call it Hermes. Freedom, man. Hermes of x. That's all. I define the output, the input, which is this, and the name of my function, which is Hermes. Now let's go to the operation my function will do. My function will do this operation, which is this. Now sine, okay, let's see, sine equals x to the power, or minus 1, like, let's put it in parentheses, minus 1 to the power of n, which is the interval from 0 to infinity, like this, multiplied by x, which is the angle, in degrees or in radians, as you want, to the power of, it's like this, to the power of 2 times the interval, which is n plus 1. The whole line over the power factorial. So it's like this. The whole line over the factorial, like this, of what? Of the power, which is this. So the factorial of 2 times n, which is the interval plus 1. Just close it. So this is my operation. But as you all know that the interval is from 0 to infinity. So I will use each element in this interval, which is n. So n will equal 0, n will equals 1, n will equals 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 till infinity. So each element will be substituted in this equation. So what should I do? Here I should do for loop. I have to use for loop. So just go and write for. And before writing for, do not forget to define your initial value. My initial value of this operation, what is my final value? I will get sine. So my initial value should be sine, and the initial value of sine will be 0 because it's summation operation. If it's multiplication, then it can be 1. So my initial value is 0. Now for I have n. So n is the interval. So for the interval equals from 0 to infinity, I don't want it to be to infinity. I want it to be till 100, example. Okay. Now just end the loop, and the final value of the loop will be the sine in degree or in radians, here in radians of the angle. If you want the answer in degrees, you can just multiply it by over 180, and it will give you the answer, the angle in degrees. So here we can just say that y, which is my function, y equals my function, which is Hermes of x. Y equals, that's all, equals sine, which is this, the final answer. But here, there is a very important thing that we forgot, which is defining the initial value. This operation will never be done if we didn't define the initial value here. So we should write sine of x. So it'll be like this. Now, so function y equals Hermes of x. What will Hermes of x do? Hermes of x will do this. So what will this do? This will find the sine in radians for any angle here, okay? For any value of x. So we define the initial value, which is 0, okay? And using for loop, after for, directly we should define the interval, which is from 0 to infinity. We say that the interval is from 0 to 100. And my answer, my final answer, equals the initial value plus the operation I have, which is minus 1 to the power of 1 multiplied by x to the power of 2 times n plus 1, and n equals the interval, or equals each element in the interval, the whole line, all of this, over the factorial of the power, which is 2 times n plus 1. I end the loop, and I got the final answer, which is sine, and I say that sine equals y, which is my function. Now, I'm done. I close my function. I am done. Save the function. Do not forget that the name of the function must be the same as the name of the file. So my function's name is Hermes. It should be Hermes. Yeah, okay, Hermes. Just save it as Hermes. Yes, go on. So when you run a function, MATLAB will give you an error. What do you mean by run? There is nothing called running a function. We call a function. So just call the function Hermes of x. So Hermes of x. You want to find the sine of 30 as example. The sine of 30 equals 0.5 in degrees, but in radians is completely different. So the sine of 30 will give you this. And the sine, which is, now this is the function that we defined, which is Hermes of x. Now to find, it's the same as sine of 30. So Hermes of 30 equals minus 0.9879, and sine of 30 equals minus 0.9879. It's approximately the same, okay? So if you want the answer in degrees, like this, or find the sine d of any angle, you can just say that x, which is this, now this is x equals x itself, the angle that I will get, which is the input, over 180, all of this operation multiplied by pi, which is already defined in MATLAB as pi. Just close it. So x, which is my angle that I want it in degrees, will be multiplied, as example 30. 30 will be divided by 180, which is 0.17 approximately, multiplied by pi, which is 3.1415, something like that, and just go on. So now just save it one more time and run it. MATLAB will give you an error. Do not ever forget it. We can't run a function. We only call a function. So sine, so when you say Hermes of 30 will give you 0.5, and that's all. It's the same thing as sine d of 30 will give you 0.5. That's all. It's very simple. First step, tell MATLAB you want to create a function. You are dealing with a computer. You're not dealing with a human being. When you ask me to find the sine of 30, yes, the sine of 30 is 0.5. It's very simple. The sine of 90, it's 1. It's very simple. But now you are dealing with a computer. You should tell the computer that you want to create a function. Now tell him that function. So, right, function. Yeah, the computer and the program will understand, yeah, that he is trying to create a function. Now I define my output, which is y, and my input, which is x, and the name of my function, which is Hermes. I want to call it Hermes. Freedom, man. And I did some operations on my input, which is x. So x equals 30 as example. I just divided it by 180 and multiplied it by pi, which is already defined in MATLAB as 3.14. And then we started to define the main operation, the main equation, and the main formula of sine of any angle. We just define the initial value of our operation, which is 0, and we say then 4. We directly define the interval here, which is n equals from 0 to 100, or we can say 1000 till infinity, it doesn't matter. My equation equals sine. So sine, the final value I will get, equals the initial value plus my whole operation, which is this, and I end it. Then y, which is my function, equals the final answer of the loop. I just ended my function, I saved it, and the name of the file must be the name as my function, and this function can find the answer, the sine of any angle in degrees, just Hermes of 90 equals nan. Why? Because the interval is very long, so I can just say like till 100. Just save it. Yeah, say Hermes of 90 equals 1. That's all. And you can find the Hermes, which is the sine d of any angle in MATLAB using this function.